So tonight we're going to talk about the 3 weeks which we are currently in, specifically the 9 days. We begin the 9 days. Rosh Chodesh Av is this coming Shabbat. Tisha B'Av, the fast of Tisha B'Av is Sunday, 9 days. After Tisha B'Av basically it's a countdown to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Come inside, welcome. Hi everyone. So Tisha B'Av, we just started for those who just arrived. So we're going to talk about all this. The first thing I want to mention tonight is in the Torah, there are no yortzites. There are no anniversaries of death. So, for example, the most famous person ever to live was Moses, right? Moses, when did he die? Anybody know when Moses died? We know that he died on the 7th day of Adar. How do we know that? Because we know the Megillah tells a story. Haman wanted to kill all the Jews, annihilate all the Jews. Right? The original Persia, the original Iran, had a plan to kill all the Jews in one day. The modern day Iran didn't just want to kill the Jews in one day, they wanted to kill all the Jews in 1 second through a nuclear bomb. They still do. But he said, which month should I do it in? Let me do it in the month of Adar, because the month of Adar is a bad month because Moses died in that month. And the Talmud says he didn't know that he also was born in that month. But we know that Moses was born in that month, and his birthday and anniversary of his death is because the Talmud expounds it and learns it. Right? We know when Abraham, Isaac, Jacob died, not because the Torah says, but we know from other sources. We know Joseph. But the Torah in the 5 books of Moses and the 24 books, there's no anniversary of death recorded with one exception. Who is that? Who?
Aaron.
The one exception is Aharon. When did Aharon die? When did Aharon die? Rosh Chodesh Av. Very good. How do we know Rosh Chodesh Av? Because the Torah says in this week's Torah portion, the Torah is describing all the journeys that the Jewish people encountered in the desert. Right, it's a double portion. One of them is called Maseh. There were 42 journeys. By the way, every time it says the journey, they got up, they vayisu vayachanu. They traveled and they rested. They traveled, they rested. And that's actually our lives. We travel, we rest. There's ups, there's highs, there's downs, there's highs, there's lows. But we always got to keep on moving. The idea is we got to always keep on moving. No matter what life throws at you, we got to keep on moving. Get up in the morning and move. There was once Rabbi Gershon Jacobson, who was he started the Allgemeine, a Yiddish newspaper. So because he was a journalist, he had access to the Soviet Union. Right, when Russia was closed, the Iron Curtain was closed. He had access to the Soviet Union, and the Rebbe gave him tasks and mission to go behind the Iron Curtain, to bring matzah, to bring books, all these kind of things. By the way, another person the Rebbe used was my father-in-law, right, Shevy's father, Rabbi Shmuel Lu, was sent on certain missions, dispatched in the 1980s. The Rebbe called him a few days before Passover and said, I need you to get like X amount of pounds of matzah into the Soviet Union, which was impossible. And he was able to figure out how to do it. There were certain people who were allowed into the Soviet Union. So one time after such a trip, the Rebbe sat for a private audience with Gershon Jacobson, and he asked him, how was it? Tell me. And Gershon Jacobson started telling the Rebbe, and the Rebbe asked him for more details and more details and more details. And the whole night they sat, and he told him about this, the pain of this Jew and the pain of that Jew, and basically painting a pretty depressing picture of Soviet Jewry, which is exactly what it was. And at the end of the meeting, the Rebbe got up, there was a light shining, he opened the curtain, there was a light shining because it was dawn, breaking of dawn. And the Rebbe said, it's a new day. Even though the Rebbe was so serious and crying at one point, he says, it's a new day. And that's indicative of our lives. It's difficult, it's so painful, but we get up the next morning, right? And we get up. I told the story before, but it's such a good story. There was in the beginning of Belev Echad, there was a girl by the name of Chana, and she came on a Belev Echad trip. This is about 15 years ago, and she told her story. 94th Street when Chabad was still on 94th Street, and she said that she grew up in a household where she hardly saw her father. Her father left to work very early in the morning and came back late at night. Father worked very hard. Her mother wasn't well, and when she was injured, what happened is she was in the back of a vehicle, like this IDF, Hammer or vehicle, and terrorists came out of nowhere and started shooting. And she spotted them, she saw them, and as they started shooting, she opened her mouth to say, terrorists, right? Like she told the driver, hit the gas and run, just escape. And as she did that, a bullet hit her mouth. And part of her tongue came out. And because of the impact of the bullet, she fell out. She got a few more bullets also, she fell out. And the driver hit the gas. So what happened is, when they hit the gas, she fell out. That's what happened. But she was unconscious on the floor, because she was hit, thinking her leg as well. And the terrorists, I guess, thought she was dead. Otherwise, they would have come to finish her off. And when the driver got back to base, they realized, oh my God, Khani's missing. Let's go back for her. So they came back for her. They tried to resuscitate her, and it didn't work. They tried to resuscitate her again, and it didn't work. A third time, they said, if you try again, it doesn't work, she's dead, that's it. Third time they tried it, and it worked. And she came back, and she was in the hospital lying in bed, and her father came to visit her. And she could not speak, because her mouth had bullets, right? Her tongue had got out. She couldn't speak. I remember seeing her face. Her face was hit also with bullets. She had plastic surgery all over her. Crazy story. And she was in the emergency, in the ICU, and she's hooked up with tubes, and she can't speak. And she sees her father crying for the first time in her life. Her father never cried. Tough Israeli, never cried. He's crying. So she signaled, give me a pen to write. And she wrote the following words. She said, Abba, al tifke. Father, don't cry. And then one of the most powerful lines ever. Hayom ani nofelet. Today I am falling. Machar ani kama. Tomorrow I get up. It's one of the most powerful lines. In fact, the chief rabbi of Israel at the time, Rabbi Lau, got up and he said, it's like Chana, Tfilat Chana, Kola lo yishama. Tfilat Chana, Chana teaches us in the Bible how to pray. She prayed, her lips were moving, but her voice you didn't hear her voice. And that's how you're supposed to pray, like the Shemona Esrei. You're silent, you pray, but it's silent. So that's the idea of Maseh, of the journeys. We all have real problems happening to us on a daily basis. But what do you do the next morning? You get up and you continue and you persevere. Maseh, the journeys. Okay, so the only yahrzeit mentioned in the whole entire Torah is Aaron, like we just said. Aaron died Rosh Chodesh Menachem Av. Now the problem with this is, the story of his death is recorded not in this week's Parsha. The story of his death is recorded in Parshas Chukas a few weeks ago. Parshas Chukas describes at length how Moses went with Aharon. He went to the mountain, to the cave, and he took off his clothes, and he did everything, and then he died with a kiss from God. Literally a kiss of death. Moses saw that. He said, I also want a similar death. I also want to die like that. It was like literally giving his soul back. So why is it that the Torah records only Aharon, nobody else? That's question one. And question two, if you're already recording it, why record it in the wrong place? It's out of context. It's not in the right place. Got it? In order to understand this, I'm going to take you on beautiful, beautiful story, beautiful depths. So one of the most famous stories, which I believe everybody here knows, and I'm just going to add a deeper layer into this. So I hope you all know the story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, right? Tractate Gittin, the Talmud says, because of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, Charuv Yerushalayim, Jerusalem was destroyed. And that's why we are here today in exile. We are in Manhattan, we are in New York City, and we are not in Jerusalem because of the story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. Now, I'm going to say the story over, even though you know, right? Everyone know the story or no? Yes? Raise your hand if you don't know it. Okay, some people don't know it. Okay, you know the story? Okay. So I'm going to say the story anyway because I'm going to add a few layers of depth over here. The Talmud says, Tractate Gittin. By the way, on Tisha B'Av, you're not allowed to learn Torah. You're only allowed to learn parts of Torah that are applicable to mourning. So this is one part of Torah that I teach on Tisha B'Av. So Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. There was a man in Jerusalem who made a feast. The Talmud doesn't say why. He made a feast. He made a party. Could it be a bar mitzvah for his child? It could be a wedding. It could be because he was 60 years old. Who knows? But he made a feast. And he sent his servant to invite people. And he asked his servant to invite his friend Kamsa. His good friend Kamsa was part of the invitation list. Now in those days there's no Evite. There's no WhatsApp. There's no Telegram. In my office we started using Slack. Does anyone know what Slack is? I never heard about it till now. Slack, it's a new thing. I'm getting used to it. So he sent his servant to knock on doors and give invitations. But the servant, instead of inviting Kamsa, he made a mistake and invited Bar Kamsa. Bar means the son of. So maybe they were father and son. Who knows? But he invited Bar Kamsa. Now Bar Kamsa was a sworn enemy of this guy, of this host, which the Talmud doesn't say his name, Mr. X. So Bar Kamsa gets an invitation from Mr. X, who is his sworn enemy, right? It's the guy, when he sees him across the road, he crosses the road. The guy he doesn't talk to. The guy by the kiddush he sits across, never at each other's thing. And he thinks to himself, why did Mr. X invite me to this feast? What could it be? What's the reason? Because he wants to make amends.
Or he wants to kill me.
Kind of hard to believe you want to harm him at the feast in front of everybody, in front of all the rabbis were there as well. The whole city was there. Right, imagine the whole Upper East Side has come to this feast. So he thought he probably feels bad and he wants to make amends for the wrongs that he committed, right? Because everybody thinks the other guy's wrong. I'm not wrong. The other guy's wrong. So he realizes finally the truth that he is wrong. He wants to invite me to make amends. Fantastic, I'm going to go. Puts on his suit, his tie, his whatever, his hat, whatever he goes to the feast. Mr. X, at the feast, in the middle of the feast, sees Bar Kamsa, his sworn enemy. So he goes over to him and says, Mister, what are you doing here? He says, you invited me. What am I doing? You invited me to make amends, obviously. He says, I never invited you. He says, well, I kind of got an invitation. He says, a mistake. I'm sorry. Get out. So Bar Kamsa said, I'm already here. Let me stay. Don't embarrass me. And I'm prepared to pay for the meal. You know, how much does a meal cost at a wedding? I don't know, $150? Actually, today, $1,000 probably, right? I don't know. I'll pay for my meal. He says, absolutely not, get out. So Bar Kamsa negotiates, right? Always a negotiation. Always a price you can pay for something, right? He says, I'll pay you half the cost of this entire affair. So if it costs you $500,000, I'll pay you $250,000 right now. Take out a checkbook, I'll pay you. Yonatan, would you have taken the offer? Of course, right? Would anybody refuse the offer of a half the wedding? Nobody I know would refuse. Bar Kamsa said, Mr. X said, absolutely not. So Bar Kamsa made a counter offer again, and he offered him to pay everything. $500,000. It doesn't say how much amount is in the Talmud, but $500,000. Miriam, would you have gone for it? $500,000. I'll bury my argument. You know what I would do? I'll bury my argument. Tomorrow I'll start fighting with him again. He said, don't kick me out. I'm embarrassed. $500,000. I would grab it. Listen, give me this guy. I want him. And Mr. X says, absolutely not. And he gets his henchmen, his bodyguards, to throw him out. This guy was thrown out of the party. And he was so mortified. He was so embarrassed. He said, there were rabbis at the party. And they did not protest. I'm going now to tell the Roman emperor that the Jews have rebelled against him. And he goes to the Roman emperor and he tells him the Jews have rebelled against you. And he says, give me proof. He says, I'll give you proof. Send them a sheep to offer on their tabernacle, on the mizbeach, on the altar. And you'll see they won't offer it. Because it's from you, they're rebelling against you. So the Roman emperor sent a sheep. And Bar Kamsa on the way took the sheep. What's that? The oven or something? No way. Try open and close it. Anyway, he took a little knife and he made a blemish on the lip of the sheep. Now, according to the Jews, that is a blemish, and you cannot offer a blemished sacrifice as an altar. You just can't do it. So what happened is, according to the Roman emperor, this is not a blemish. So the Jews debated, should we offer it or should we not offer it? Should we offer, should we not offer? Because until there was a rabbi called Zechariah ben Avkulis, and he says, if we offer it, they will say for generations that we are allowed to offer blemish sacrifice, and therefore we cannot. So they didn't offer it, and the Roman emperor sent his army, and the rest is history. He destroyed Jerusalem. This is what happened. This is the story. Now I ask you a question. Why did Mr. X refuse the money? Tzvi, why did he refuse the money? Can you think of any reason in the world that he would refuse the money? Can anybody think of a reason why Mr. X would... Why?
Ego.
ego is ego, but money is money. You know?
His hate was even more than that?
Was his hatred more than the money? I mean, could he not have hated him even more and decided to trick him by taking the money, cashing the check, and then hating him the next day? What's wrong with that? Why not use your brains? And furthermore, I have another question for you. Why did not one rabbi protest? Not one rabbi. There were a whole bunch of rabbis there, the whole Upper East Side rabbis, everybody was there. And they see a Jew being kicked out, publicly scorned and embarrassed. How could they not protest? Not one. How could it be?
Say a Shabbat.
It was Shabbat. What would that mean? What does it mean it was Shabbat? No. What? Yeah, if you figure it out, let me know. The noise, I don't know. It's got to come from somewhere, right?
It's the freezer.
The freezer? Okay. Once upon a time.
You got a cat in the freezer. It's like purr.
Once upon a time, there were Hasidim. We have a genius in our midst. We're going to hire you. We are going to hire you to take care of noise. Once upon a time, we know when Hasidus first came out, like last night we started our first Tanya class. Some of you were there at the Tanya class. And I encourage you all to come every week to Tanya Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. There was the founder of Tanya, when the Alter Rebbe came out with Hasidus, there was tremendous opponents, tremendous fights amongst Jews, religious Jews, who thought that this is a new cult and this is going to destroy Judaism. How are you introducing something new to the world? And the opponents, the opposition grew so strong that eventually even one of the greatest Chassidim like Moshe Meisler said, I've had enough, let me fight back. I want to fight back. Have you ever had a situation, a scenario, where somebody really deserves your wrath, deserves your hatred, deserves to be punished by you? Can you imagine the animosity and the fights going on in Israel right now? You know, Mike Huckabee just went to Rabbi Dov Landau, who's the head of one of the heads of the Jewish world, the rabbinic world, and there's a massive fight going on in Israel now. As Jews, we cannot agree on anything. One of the greatest fights now, which is threatening to bring down the government, is the conscription law, the draft law. That means like this: there are Jews who are sitting and learning Torah. We call them Haredim Jews. I don't like labeling Jews. Haredim Jews, and they want to study Torah day and night. What happens is, when you have a boy who is, 12, 13, he goes to yeshiva. From zero, he goes to yeshiva. Then 14, 15, 16. But then when he's 18, when it's the level of enlisting in the army, he goes to yeshiva. And 18, 19, 20, he's in yeshiva. He's studying Torah day and night. And then when he's 21, 22, he gets married, or 23, he gets married. And then he goes to kollel. Kollel he's sitting and learning Torah. So by sitting and learning Torah, he is exempt from serving in the army. Now, in 1948, when the modern state of Israel was established, Prime Minister Ben Gurion saw that there were Haredim, there were Jews who wanted to do it. So there was like a status quo. All the years there was a status quo. You guys go and learn Torah, nobody's going to bother you. But as Israel grew and as the Haredim, more and more Jews were there, this became a hot issue. And in the last couple of decades, I would say, but especially the last couple of years, this has become a very, very hot topic. And especially in light of the current war on October 7, like, why should my son go fight, be injured, die, and your son just study Torah? I also want to get an exemption. I want my son to go to college. He wants to study. Why shouldn't he be able to study? Your son can study. Why can't my son study? Right? This is a big issue. And in Jews itself, you'd be surprised. It's not religious and non-religious. In religious Jews, you have so many different opinions. And do you know what I mean? It's not like one sect. Like you have different politicians and everybody's fighting and everybody thinks that they are right. Everybody thinks. By the way, Chabad has their own view, specifically about the army. But just one thing I do want to mention, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the draft law and everything else, but Mike Huckabee, when he met Rabbi Landau, He said to him that the Jewish world needs two things. It needs soldiers to fight, and it needs scholars. Mike Huckabee said it needs scholars. The U.S. ambassador to Israel said we need scholars. So Rabbi Landa answered him, I wish all Jews thought this way. But anyways, it was like a nice little thing there. But it's such hatred amongst Jews because we all think we are right. The bottom line is we need Jews who are going to serve in the army, and we do need Jews to study Torah. We do. What that is and how much that is, that's for a different question. But we definitely need Jews to fight by studying Torah. It's the protection. King David had it. King David divided up the shalal, the spoils of the army, of the conquering land. He divided up equally between the people who stayed behind, studied Torah, and the people who were fighting in the army, because you need both. But I don't get into that argument now. What I want to say is like this. Eventually the story of Moshe Meizish reached a boiling point. That he said, I cannot take this anymore, I want to fight back. And the Alter Rebbe said, nothing good ever comes out of fighting. Nothing good, no matter what, will ever come out of fighting. And then he made a statement. He said, most fights are all l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. Most fights happen because we think we are protecting God. In the name of God, in the name of religion, we fight. Most fights. I'm not talking about fights, the neighbor double parked, or this neighbor complains all the time because we drill here, where the kids scream in the backyard. Our neighbors must love us now in the summer because the kids are not here, but when they're here, every neighbor here screams on Shabbat afternoon, can you shut those kids up? But I'm not talking about, these are petty little arguments. I'm talking about arguments like for the sake of heaven. And now let's look at that story again according to the explanation of the Maharsha. The Maharsha explains that Bar Kamsa, remember the story? Bar Kamsa was an evil man. He was completely irreligious. Bar Kamsa did not keep Shabbat. He violated Yom Kippur in public. He didn't keep kosher. He probably ate pig in public. And so when Bar Kamsa came to the party, it was an embarrassment because Mr. X and the rabbis were religious. And how dare you bring and invite an irreligious person to our midst? If Mr. X wouldn't have kicked him out, the rabbis would have kicked him out. We don't want to be in this guy's company. And so when he offered to pay for the whole thing, on principle, I will never agree to take your $500,000 and keep you in my party because you defy everything I believe in. You are against everything I believe in. How can I wine and dine with an irreligious Jew? A Jew who violates publicly Shabbat and Yom Kippur and everything else and doesn't put on tefillin. And so no amount of money would ever buy him in. And that's why the rabbis never protested. And that is why, says the Talmud, Jerusalem was destroyed. That is why the exile happened. Because as Jews, we have to be able to find common ground. So what if the person is irreligious? You know how much God loves that irreligious Jew? God loves him or her like his only child. Imagine you have a father who has an only child. Nobody else. That's how much the father loves him. That's how much the father loves the irreligious Jew. I said this story last night, but I'll say it again. My son complained to my wife this week because I put him to bed and I was mean to him because I put him to bed. He says to my wife the next morning when she came, he says, can you find another father instead of this one? We need another father. And I was like so shocked. I've been asking him, even today I asked him, so Nu? I took him for a swimming lesson today. I said, Nu, you want a new father? He said, yes. I said, will the new father take you for swimming lessons? He says, Mommy will. But the point is, nothing a child can do. I love him so much. And that's how much a father loves us. An Orthodox Jew, a conservative Jew, a Reformed Jew, it doesn't matter. Every single Jew is the same in the eyes of God. And so the first lesson we need to learn is that we need to find common ground between every single one of us. In the 1970s, there was a judge in Israel. A wicked judge by the name of Chaim Cohen. Chaim Cohen symbolized everything that the Lubavitcher Rebbe was against, basically. This guy fought on issues that the Rebbe held near and dear. Right? One of the issues was, like for example, Miu Yehudi, to define who is a Jew. The Rebbe thought that in the Knesset, the law should be defined who is a Jew, somebody who converted Orthodox, halachically, and somebody whose mother's Jewish. And today, there's a lot of non-Jews coming in from Russia and all different countries making Aliyah because one of the grandfathers was Jewish. So there's an eighth Jewish. There's no such thing as an eighth Jew. You're either Jewish or you're not Jewish. So Chaim Cohen fought the Rebbe on this and many, many issues. He caused the Rebbe pain. There was one time, actually, this guy Chaim Cohen, who was a Kohen, he fell in love with a girl and he wanted to marry her. The only problem was a Kohen is not allowed to marry a girl who is divorced. You can't marry him. So no rabbi wanted to marry him off, officiate. Now he's a judge, like he represents the law. So what he did was, he flew to Cyprus or one of these countries out of it and got married to her civilly. And this is an uproar in the whole of Israel. How could there be a judge in Israel who's not following the Torah laws? Anyway, this guy in 1976 found himself in New York, visiting a friend. I don't know what he was doing. And it was Simchat Torah night. He was staying in Manhattan, and the friend told him, let's experience something unique. He said, what is it? He said that these Hasidim, the Rebbe, 770, a lot of Jews, a lot of action, a lot of fun. Let's go check it out. So Chaim Cohen said, yeah, why not? So they went, both friends. They get to 770 Eastern Parkway. There were thousands of Hasidim there, dancing, hakafot, dancing about the Torah. If you've ever been to Brooklyn, New York, you know that Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah, 48 hours, 2 days worth, there's dancing day and night. The dancing does not stop for a moment. But the Rebbe used to say that, what we can fulfill on Rosh Hashanah with tears and prayers, we can fulfill on Simchat Torah with joy and dancing. So, as Chaim Cohen came in, the Rebbe's secretary recognized him. He was a pretty famous guy. And he's like, OMG, this guy is here. He's just like, I'm not going to look. I'm going to pretend I don't see him. It's like a Mr. Bar Kamsa walking into the party, right? That's exactly what it was. Mr. Bar Kamsa walked into the party uninvited. Now you have Chaim Cohen who represents everything against the Rebbe. Everything, fighting tooth and nail with the Rebbe. And here he is at your party, at your Simchat Torah party. What did Mr. X do? Kick him out. The Rebbe could have kicked him out. The Rebbe had thousands of Hasidim who would do anything for the Rebbe. Anything. The Rebbe said to his secretary, bring him here. They brought Chaim Cohen there. And the Rebbe said, give him a Sefer Torah. Gave him a Sefer Torah. And then the Rebbe went like this. And when the Rebbe goes like this, the Hasidim start dancing. And the Rebbe went like this, like this, like this. And the Hasidim went wild. Wild. Like, the Super Bowl, I've never been myself, but the Super Bowl, like there's 100,000 people, boom, and like dancing and dancing. And normally one hakafa, one dance lasts 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 9 minutes, long. 5 minutes pass, 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. And this guy, he can't leave. He's holding the Torah. He's an old guy, by the way. He's holding the Torah. 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and everybody's recognizing Chaim Cohen. And everybody's realizing how much love the Rebbe is showering this Chaim Cohen. 45 minutes. The guy was dancing and into it. And you're in the circle, you can't escape. There's no escaping. And after 45 minutes, he gives the Torah to somebody else. And the dancing, he starts somebody else, and he leaves. Chaim Cohen never changed his ways. He never became a Baal Teshuvah from that story. But his friend said, I'll never go into 770 again. And I asked him why. He said, Chaim Cohen never changed then, but I saw a change inside of him. There was something changed. And at the end of his life, he asked to be buried. Not cremated, buried, and asked somebody to say Kaddish over him. And he says he felt that experience in 770 changed him. But the point of the story is, look how revolutionary what the Rebbe taught us. How to treat Jews. This is how you treat Jews who in principle hate everything about you. The Rebbe says, of course I don't agree with Chaim Cohen and everything, but I love him. Look deeper into him, look beyond him, and you'll notice a soul, a Yiddish soul, a Jewish soul beating. A neshama, a part of God, a child of God, yearning to do what's right. It's the external that is hard. And the Rebbe taught us to look beyond, to see beyond it. And that is how we can understand now Aharon. That's the story we started with in the beginning. Aharon HaKohen. By the way, Aaron was a reincarnation. Who was the reincarnation of? Aharon. I mentioned this maybe a couple of years ago, or I don't know, a couple months ago. So Aharon was a reincarnation. See, Aaron is the letters Aaron is Aleph, Hey, Resh, Nun. Aleph, Haran. Remember the story of Abraham Avinu when he was a young child? His father, Terach, one time put him in charge of his idol store. And Abraham went, and the first customer came in, and Abraham told him, why do you want to buy idols? He says, I want to serve them, I want to bow down to them. And Abraham convinced him, this is nonsense. We bowing down to an idol for? Go bow down to God. And every customer that came in, Abraham convinced them to believe in God, not in idols. And at the end of the day, when Terach came back home, all the idols were smashed on the floor, and the chief idol there had a broomstick in his hand. And Terach asked Abraham what happened, and Abraham said, this idol got jealous of all the other idols, and he smashed them, and he killed them, and here is the proof. So Terach said, that's impossible. You know that's impossible. So Abraham said, you know that it's impossible and you still serve these guys? So Terach, the father, took Abraham to Nimrod. Nimrod was the king. And he told him what happened. So Nimrod said, I'm going to punish you with death. So they made a massive furnace, big furnace. And they told Abraham, this is your last chance. If you believe in the gods, we'll spare you. But if you insist on believing in Hashem, we're going to throw you into the furnace. So Abraham said, I'm going to die. I'm going to throw you in the furnace. And they asked Abraham's nephew. Before Abraham went into the fire, they asked Abraham's nephew, Haran. They said, who do you believe in? Do you believe in all the gods, or do you believe in the God of Abraham? And he answered what? He answered, it depends. If Abraham will survive, I believe in his God. And if Abraham dies, I believe in everybody else. So when Abraham miraculously survived, right? Miraculously survived this intense fire, they asked Haran, who do you believe in? He said, the God of Abraham. They threw him into the fire and he died. Why didn't God make a miracle for Haran? Because you don't make deals with God. I don't know the answer, but perhaps that's the answer. So Haran was a good guy. He was a guy who chose the middle path. You know, sometimes you need to pick a side. Are you on God's side or are you on the evil side? And he was in the middle. And so he had to be reincarnated. Like every single one of us has been reincarnated multiple times until we are able to fix what our previous reincarnation, what we did wrong, right? We could have been a Jew in Poland. We could have been a Jew in South America. We could have been anybody. And we were Jews multiple times. So Aharon was reincarnated into Haran was into Aharon. Aharon is the same letters as Haran with an additional Aleph. Aharon was also in the middle all the time. But what kind of middle was Aharon? Aharon went to a guy like Tzvi. And he said, Tzvi, I know you had a fight with Yonatan. But let me tell you, Tzvi, Yonatan told me that he's sorry for cursing you out. And he's sorry for stealing, I don't know, $100 from you. He's really, really apologizing. So Tzvi would ask, why didn't Yonatan come to me himself? And Aaron would say, because he's embarrassed. Poor guy is embarrassed. He says, really? Yeah, really. So he would soften his heart and Tzvi would forgive him. And then Aaron would go to Yonatan and he said, I just spoke to Tzvi and he's so sorry for what he did to you, for smashing you up and giving you a black eye. He said, really? And that's how he made peace. Aharon was always in the middle, mostly with couples. With couples, husband and wife, who always fought. He was always in the middle, always making peace, bridging the gap between them. And that's why, by the way, when Aaron died, it says, Vayivku oto kol Beit Israel. All the nation of Israel mourned for him. Men, women, children. It was the biggest funeral in history. When Moses died, not everybody came. Moses wasn't beloved and liked like Aharon. Aharon was beloved because he was always in the middle. He was fixing Haran's mistake, bringing God, bringing the Aleph. Aleph is God, bringing the Aleph into Haran, into the middle. And that is why Aaron's Yortzeit is mentioned now, because what God wants to do, 1,500 years before the destruction of the temple, God put now the antidote to the destruction of the temple. Why was the temple destroyed? We learned in the class tonight. Because of one reason. Hatred for no reason. Hatred like on principle, I hate you. I cannot invite you to my party. There was hatred going on. That's why Jerusalem was destroyed. So in order to fix this up, what do we need to do? Loving a fellow Jew. Like Aharon. Aharon was Ohev Yisrael. He loved Jews. He went over to them all day long and he lied and he lied and he lied to make peace. So Aaron's Yortzeit is recorded now in Parshas Maseh, this week. Why this week? Because this week is always in the 9 days. It's always Rosh Chodesh Av. Rosh Chodesh Av is the antidote. Aaron is the antidote. Aaron loving a fellow Jew for no reason. That is how we fix the Galut, the exile. That is how we bring Mashiach. That is how the temple will be rebuilt. That is how Al-Aqsa Mosque will cease to exist. Al-Aqsa Mosque is like the biggest lie in history. Like the Arabs, the Muslims claim that this is their territory. That's nonsense. By the way, the borders of Israel are listed in this week's parasha. If anybody wants to look actually what the real borders of Israel are, they're actually much more than what Israel, modern day state of Israel, has. And when Mashiach comes today, the first thing we're going to do is kick the Arabs out of our country. If they want to live there, they have to lay down their arms. No more hostages, no more terrorists. No more of this. But Aaron, the Torah is teaching us, is the classic antidote to be able to fix this. And that's why it wasn't listed in Parshas Chukas when Aaron died. It's listed in this week's Parsha. Panimaish? Kapish? And this is also, by the way, the secret to hatred is always more love. If somebody hates you know what you do? Shower them with love. If somebody comes and attacks your business, you know what you do? Shower them with love. And I use this every day, by the way. We have, thank God, a big business, so to speak. Right? Somebody was very upset with me this week. Very, very upset. And all I did was shower him with more love. More love and more love and more love. Once upon a time, there was a young couple getting married. And in those days, the Russians would steal Jews, take Jews, so to speak, to the army. And so this couple, the Russians came in the middle of the chuppah, and they grabbed the chassan, the groom. And they said, oh, we need him for the army. So the Jews came right away, the guy's in the middle of his wedding, no. So he says, okay, I want 1,000 rubles to release him. So at that time, the Alter Rebbe came to that city, and he started collecting money. And he realized that there's poor people, Pidyon Shvuim, right? Releasing a captive is a very, very big mitzvah. He realized that the Jews were very, very poor. So he says, is there any rich people here? So nobody wanted to tell him. They said, there's one guy, he's such a miser. He's part of our community, but he doesn't give charity at all. Never, ever, ever. And all he does, if you ask him for charity, he'll throw you like a kopek, like a nickel, like a dime. So Alter Rebbe says, let me go to him. The Alter Rebbe goes to this guy. And he says, that guy opens his home. He's so excited to see the Alter Rebbe. You know, his name's Moishele. And Moishele says to Alter Rebbe, what can I do for you? And the Alter Rebbe starts describing this poor situation of this young chassan and Kala. They're at their wedding. And the Russian army came, and they took the guy and they put him in prison. They will only release him for 1,000 rubles. And the guy says, that Alter Rebbe explains, how could we face this, the family? The young bride. What should we do? So the guy says, yes, I'm going to help you. So he goes to his charity cabinet, whatever. He pulls out a kopek, which is like a little bronze coin, like a little dime, gives it to Alter Rebbe. He says, here. So the guys who were with the Alter Rebbe said, throw it back in his face. What chutzpah? What tragedy? Like what? How dare he? And the Alter Rebbe says, let me handle this. He says, thank you very, very, very much. I appreciate your generosity. He gets up. He starts walking to the door. And the miser, Moshe, calls him back and says, no, I want to give you some more. Come back. Come sit down. And then he goes out and he gives him $1. Comes back with $1, gives him $1. And the people around say, chutzpah, $1. And he went, the Alter Rebbe says, thank you so much, I really appreciate it. Starts walking to the door. As he does that, he says, come back, I want to give you more. Comes back, gives him $100. The Alter Rebbe says, thank you so much, I really appreciate it. Starts walking to the door. He says, come back. And then he gives him 1,000 rubles. He said, thank you for allowing me to do the mitzvah. And the Alter Rebbe says, why did you give me only a kopek at the beginning? If you wanted to give me 1,000 rubles, why didn't you give it to me in the beginning? And the guy starts to cry. And Moshe says, when I was a young man, just starting out in business, I had no money. Nothing. I was making nothing. I couldn't put bread on my table. And one day, as I'm passing in the market, a poor man says to me, please can I have some money? Some tzedakah. And I had nothing. All I had was this kopek, this bronze little coin. So I gave it to him. I said, here you go. And I felt good that I did a mitzvah. And this poor man says, "This is what you're giving me?" Threw it back in my face. And I was so insulted. I was so offended that I made a vow then and there that I will never give another person charity until somebody appreciates this kopek. And I've kept this kopek, and all the charity people who come to me collecting money in the last 40 years, I've given this thing, they've all thrown them into my face. And I wish I could give charity, but I was bound by my vow. And you, the Alter Rebbe, were the first person to say thank you for that kopek, and you allowed me now to disown my vow. And what the Alter Rebbe did was teach us that everybody thought this guy was an evil person, was a miser. But it was so far from the truth. All the guy needed was love. So when somebody attacks you, and you think he's such an evil person, shower them with love. And if they attack you again, shower them with more love. And if they attack you again, more love and more love and more love. And it's it doesn't make sense. But that's what you do. And that's also, in this week's Parsha, we are commanded to hate Midian. And Moses' final commandment before he died, he was told by God, Nikoim, Nikmas Hashem, go out and revenge against the Midianites. Kill them all. It was the last commandment. By the way, the Jews wanted to tarry. They realized Moses is going to die after he fulfilled his mitzvah. So they delayed. And Moses told them, don't delay, let's do the mitzvah. But why does God command us to hate the Midianites? Why not hate the Moabites? We know what the Midianites did, right? They sent their daughters to seduce the Jewish men, as I explained a few weeks ago. And God was so angry. And there was a plague came out. But the Moabite girls did the same thing. We don't find a mitzvah to hate the Moabites. What about the Egyptians? They enslaved us for 210 years. They drowned us. They whipped us. They killed us. They murdered us. We don't have a mitzvah to hate the Egyptians. Why do we have a mitzvah to hate the Midianites? Anybody know? What's the answer? Because the Midianites hated us for no reason. We weren't a threat to them. We weren't bordering a country with them. Moabites, they hated us, but we can understand why they hated us, because the Moabites had this pact with the countries of Sichon and Og, which were adjacent to them. Sichon and Og were giants, and they made a deal: if the Jews attack us, you'll protect us. But then when Moses killed Sichon and Og and destroyed them, they were afraid. Moab was afraid, so they decided to go to war. Egyptians, Pharaoh, it says in the Torah, why did he hate the Jews? Because he thought that the Jews are multiplying so fast, they're going to be a threat to me. But Midian hated us for no reason. It says in the Parsha, Ki tzaror et hamidyanim ki tzorerim. Where does the word tzorerim come from? The Megillah. Who does it say is ish tsar ve'oyev? Haman. It says ish tsar. Tsar is the exact translation is like, is what? Tsar, it's tzorerim. It's like
Narrow, yeah.
narrow, but it's, but ish tsar ve'oyev. Why is Haman ish tsar? And what's the connection between Haman and the Midianites? Because Haman comes home to his wife. His wife asked him, how was your day? And Haman was a person who had everything. Imagine you own so much real estate, you're a billionaire. Imagine your name is Elon Musk. And you could buy anything you want. Anything you want. Any company, whatever you want, you could buy. And everybody in the world bows down to you, right? So you have fame and power and covered everywhere you walk. Everybody stops and bows down to you. And he comes home to his wife and he says, how's your day? And he says, terrible. He says, everything I have is worth nothing. Why? Because one Jew refuses to bow down to me. One Jew in the entire universe refuses to bow down to me. That is called ish tsar ve'oyev, like hatred for no reason. Why do you hate Mordechai? Why do you hate the Jewish people? What did they do to you? No reason at all. That is Amalek. That is Iran. That is certain enemies we have today. And that's why God commands us, destroy the Midianites. That's Amalek, by the way. The first mitzvah that Mashiach has when he comes, we're going to obliterate Amalek. We're all going to take our guns and we're going to destroy, we're going to kill Amalek. Amalek, there's no mercy for Amalek. We kill men, women, and children. Nothing. We don't leave a single person over. And that's what, and I'm going to end up with this. King Solomon says, the whole concept of Midian is also hatred for no reason amongst us. There's a mimer from the Rebbe Rashab called Hechaltzu. Hechaltzu means hatred between Hasidim, between Jews. This is the biggest stress, the biggest cause of pain, of galut, of exile, which is what I'm explaining the whole class. But specifically, King Solomon says, Matzah isha, matzah tov. If a man finds a woman, he finds good. Right? And then in another place he says, Motzeh ani mar mimavet et isha. I find a woman to be more bitter than death. King Solomon knew because he had how many wives? 1,000 wives. So we got to trust him for marital advice, right? Imagine you're married to 1,000 women. So in one place he says, Matzah isha matzato, you find a woman, you find good. And another place says, a woman is more bitter than death. How could that be? So it depends. If your life evolves around ani, motze ani, if all is about the I, then it's more bitter than death. But if your life evolves around your wife, matzah isha matzatov, you find a wife, you find good. Once upon a time, and I'm end of this final story, there was a man who came to a rabbi, and he says to the rabbi, I need advice. I really, really, really need advice. The rabbi says, what's wrong? He says, I hate my wife. Cannot stand her. So the rabbi says, Gewalt. So he says to the rabbi, find me a way to kill her. She's got to die. She has to, I need to kill my wife. Rabbi, please give me advice. You know, rabbis give advice on everything and anything. You know, this is like a real deal. So the rabbi says, you want her dead? Listen to me, what I tell you. If you go ahead and you poison her, the police will find you, you'll sit in jail. If you go and shoot her, the police will find, whatever you do to kill her in the regular methods, the police will find you and your life won't be a life. So he says, Rabbi, what should I do? He says, I have advice for you. It says, if you make a vow to give charity in public, in the shul, and you don't give it within a year, your wife dies. So make a vow. I don't know, you're a rich guy, make a vow in the synagogue, I'm going to donate $1 million. Make it on Yom Kippur, in front of the Torah, where everybody hears you and everybody commends you, Mr. Jack Cohen, wow, amazing, $1 million. Make the vow, and in your heart you know you won't fulfill it. Then comes the next year, Rosh Hashanah, your wife will die, kaput, the end. The guy says to her, you are a genius. Unbelievable. Wow. But the rabbi says, 1 second. If you make the vow for $1 million and you don't fulfill it, everybody will know you made the vow in order to kill your wife. He says, Rabbi, what should I do? He says, be nice to her. Be nice to her for the first few months. And then everybody will think you have a good relationship. And then nobody will accuse you of hating her and killing her by not doing your vow. He says, Rabbi, you are the most brilliant rabbi in the world. So he does just that. He makes a vow, Yom Kippur, he's so excited. Everybody says, Jack Cohen, $1 million. The rabbi's excited, right? $1 million for the shul. And then what happens is, on Sukkot, there's a mitzvah in the Torah to make your wife happy, right? To go buy her a gift. So he goes, he says, I need to pretend that I like her. So he buys her a beautiful ring. This woman who's never received a gift from her husband in her life says to him, thank you. Wow, this is amazing. And she's so appreciative. The whole Sukkot, she's talking about this. And she says, thank you so much. This is amazing. And she decides to make him a nice meal on Sukkot. You know? Anyway, following week for Simchat Torah, he decides to buy her a nice dress because he's got to pretend that he likes her. And he wants everybody he wants her to go and show all her friends, this is the ring my husband bought. This is the dress my husband bought. So that when he doesn't fulfill his vow, they know he didn't kill her on purpose. Because he doesn't have money. Anyway, she buys a dress and she's so thankful. She makes him breakfast. She makes him lunch. She makes him dinner. Anyway, afterwards, the week after, he's washing the dishes on Saturday night. This guy who's a lazy guy, sits on the couch watching television all day long, is suddenly washing the dishes. She's like astounded. She thinks her husband is like, I don't know what's wrong with him. So she reciprocates. And she's acting nicely to him. And she talks nicely to him. Fantastic, phenomenal. And this continues for 1 month, and 2 months, and 3 months. And then it comes the month of Elul, and the rabbi calls the guy over. He says, Mr. Jack Cohen, where's the $1 million? Reminder that your wife's going to die. He said, my wife's going to die? What are you talking about? He said, yeah, you don't give $1 million, your wife's going to die. The guy said, oh my God, I love my wife. I love her. I don't want her to die. So the rabbi said, well, if you don't want her to die, you give $1 million. And so the guy, who was a wealthy guy, had to give $1 million to charity. But the point of the story is that when you think you hate somebody so much, when you think there's no redemption, When you think there's no way of solving the marriage, you love her even more. And this is so against the natural inclination that we have. Like even when we hear the shiur now, the class study, we hear it now, we think to ourselves, yes, this is true for everybody except that one guy. That one guy, no, he's the exception. That's the guy the shiur Torah class is about. That's the guy you hate so much, the guy that you think on principle I cannot talk to him or her. That's the guy you need to love, and love even more. And that is a secret to the 9 days. That's a secret to the 3 weeks. That's the secret of rebuilding the Beit HaMikdash, which will happen now. B'mheira v'yameinu.